So, I've got a video I want to make, and this video I feel is quite important because I think there's currently, um, like, something's been lost by the wayside. Um, this is something that needs to really be talked about. But Jay made a video about it, and I think people just didn't really take him too seriously. Um, Not to say that I'm, like, super reputable, but I would hope that with what I've done so far, um, I at least have some level of credibility in this field, and it's just something that I really need to mention because it's going to help a lot of you guys in future. So, as you guys know, I've been doing a lot of overclocking on Alder Lake and stuff, and I've been overclocking for the last, I don't know, probably like it's probably a solid like since I got PCs, right? Like, yeah, since my very first CPU, I actually tried overclocking because I always find it like an interesting concept. I ended up I ended up not understanding with my first CPU and board. I believe I actually might have I think I might have killed the board VRM, possibly. I think I might have killed the board VRM, or I might have no, but that's not possible. I feel like that wouldn't be possible. I think I might have done something, but it was something weird where I needed to like clear CMOS or something because basically the very first PC I had, like I tried overclocking and then it crashed, but it didn't want to boot up. So I thought the CPU was dead or something. It actually wasn't because someone else that I gave it to years later, they tested it and they were like, no, it's completely fine. So I don't actually know what happened because the CPU actually was completely fine according to the dude that I gave it to. Um, so I don't know what happened to the first piece I had, but that CPU I had, something happened to it when I was trying to overclock it. I don't know. I think I just back then I didn't know you had to clear CMOS if you had like boot problems and stuff, and I don't know what exactly went wrong, but the RAM was completely fine, GPU and everything was completely fine, like power supply was fine, everything was completely fine, except the CPU was not booting up in the board. It might have been the board could have died, but I don't believe I could have blown a VRM. Plus, I heard no sounds and I didn't smell anything, and you kind of can tell when a VRM blows. Plus, the CPU was alive, which is not common when a VRM dies in the motherboard. So, um, that was my first overclocking experience, and that kind of like scared me because quite possibly the worst thing that can go wrong went wrong. But then I kept like doing it, but more carefully, I guess you could say. So with my first i7 I owned, I overclocked it a little bit via BCLK because I didn't have a K series CPU. And like a moderate OC, and then since that point, like every single CPU I had owned, I just added a very slight OC. Whether it be through BCLK, so I did BCLK mostly on i7s because I used to buy the non-K ones, and then when I got my first 5960X, my first unlocked i7, I that was like 2018 when I got that fairly old HEDT chip, and I ran it like 4 point, you know, something very slightly above the boost clock at a very low voltage, and actually it was a very good sample because it ran like super low voltage. Um, but anyway, so in recent years we've been getting these super like high clock chips and Ryzen chips and stuff, and okay, so the problem is if I show you my NVIDIA, I don't know if you guys can see this. I hope you can. But I when I did a fresh install Windows, I ended up not getting Afterburner because I just didn't feel like getting it again. Plus, I play CS and I face it, and I just don't want to have like Riva Tuner and like trying to overlay. And yeah, you can add no detection, but like again, it's just a I'd rather not have the app on my PC because it's gonna just like add bloatware, and I can do it through here anyway. So if you guys didn't know, you can actually overclock your GPU via this, and you can't add an offset. But what happens is NVIDIA runs an algorithm, and you max out the power and voltage and stuff first. Obviously, you set an automatic fan target. You can add a higher percentage to target, but I think automatic does a fairly good job with my card, my FE card. Now I don't know about other AIBs, but my FE card seems to run fine with automatic fan speed target. This automatically found 105 megahertz stable, which is pretty good. It's pretty much the max that I could get as well. I couldn't get more than 105 stable, but it turns out my mem clock. Well, I think my mem clock might have been a bit too high, even though it wasn't high at all. NVIDIA added. Well, you can't see it here now, but they added 200 megahertz, so they basically gave me 9950. There we go. You see it there. 9950 is the max it'll go to, which is, if you know, 9950 megahertz with double data rate, so about 19.9 gigabits per second, which is not a good overclock on the memory at all, but it's whatever, it's stable. And this is good enough for a daily because like 105 megahertz, like let's say you could play a game at, okay, hypothetically a game that can run a 90 at like 1 volt. Now a 3090 at 1 volt with the 400 watt BIOS will draw a fuck ton of power. So, before you say, "Oh, my card," if your card boosts to 2100 megahertz on a 90, you have fucking mad BIOS. You have like a 450 watt BIOS, and you've got a sick bin because these cards are not easy to clock to fucking 2100 megahertz because they draw a lot of power, like a lot of power, like crazy amount of power. So let's say with my 400 watt BIOS, realistic limit. About 1 volt gets you, I would say, maybe 1995 megahertz, maybe 2010 if you're lucky. So, 3090 at 1 volt would get you 1.0 volts, but that's what most people can draw with 400 watts in most games, like in a AAA game. So you'd be at let's say a good bin, let's say 1995 to 2010 megahertz, right? At 1 volt. Now, obviously, you get some god tier samples. You could run your card like with LM and a water block, and you could have a crazy loop with fucking 10 radiators, like some people have. That's not what I'm catering to. This is like the average card, the average person, the average person setup with the normal cooling setup and everything, but just like very decent but standard cooling setup. Nothing crazy. Cards running at like 65C in game, whatever. So about this, right now, that's with the 105 with like a 105 ish megahertz overclock, so I can do that little symbol. Because it's gonna require like an overclock to do it. And I wonder where it is now. I can't find it now. Is it one of these? I think it's one of these. Wait, no. This one, no, this one, no, this one, no. Wait. Oh, there we go. So that was embarrassing. Okay, so like with sort of 105 megahertz overclock. So now, what does that translate to? And let's say, okay, let's say we're doing a decent G6X OC, so not like I have now. Let's say a moderate G6X OC. So let's say like nothing crazy, like 21 gigabits per second. That's very healthy for most cards. Most cards can do that, no problem. So what do you get? That's versus 19.5. So if you do the basic math, now G6, the memory clock won't scale as well as the core clock, but it will definitely help. So that's about 7.5 mega percent like higher. Now you could perhaps see this add like maybe equate to roughly like 3% in game. Wait. And you'd see that equate to, I mean, that's going to be 1-to-1, right? So in a GPU bound game. So that'll be about, let's give it 2010. Minus 105 is going to be 1905. So 1905. It's about 5.5%. So let's say 5%. And I can't see my keyboard symbols because of my room stock. GPU bound game. So that's about a solid 8% right there. Now, what does that mean? If you're playing control. I think. No, let me get a. I want to get you some numbers, but to be honest, it doesn't matter too much because it's more about the principle. Okay, let's say Watch Dogs Legion, because I can guess more or less what it'll get. 1440p max settings plus medium RT plus DLSS quality. Uh, I would say that would be like 95 FPS, maybe. It might be less. I don't know. So you apply this, and that'll be literally like a fairly good bump. I mean, it's not nothing. It's something, right? It's 102.6 FPS now. Okay, that's just an example, right? So this is not like something that would be exactly, because I don't know exactly what it'll get frame wise. I'm not so sure right now, but that's a huge improvement. Okay, now let's say you're playing something like COD Vanguard, right? Low settings, and you're doing no RT, and then still like DLSS quality. So you'd be looking at, I think, about 270 FPS at 1440p, if I had to guess, about 270 FPS stock. And then that would end up being like, again, not exact, but let's just, for argument's sake, right? Give me some room. 291. That's a good improvement. 20 FPS. Now, not like you need this, but it's there, right? Now, in these high FPS scenarios, let's just pretend. Um, Now, let me just make this very clear. With JDEC DDR5, you're not hitting these fucking numbers. Like, there's no way. Like, JDEC DDR5 is extremely slow, okay? So, let's say, stock DDR5. Stock DDR5, and we're talking, scuffed secondaries, scuffed, and mega scuffed tertiaries. You could say mega scuffed because it's mega scuffed. Horrendous, 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 like crazy bad. Um, uh, and that's going to be plus minus 4800 TRFI. Pathetic. That's extremely bad, guys. It's really really bad, and maybe like 400 TRFC. It's Man, it's really bad. Like, this is this is slow as hell, man. This is slow as hell. So let's pretend like, oh, let's, I think it'd be 480 more or less, wouldn't it? No, I don't know. Whatever. That would probably end up being what it would be. But something like this, right? If you transform this to my current OC, which is stable by the way, I have screenshots that I can show you just now. I just want to elaborate on just now as well because it's important to the topic. Um, man, why the fuck do I try and body build? I'm so much better at this shit. Anyway, so versus what I have here. So this is very doable, by the way. It's not that hard to do. These settings don't take too long to type in. To get these settings, all you really need is a good kit of Hynix and a decent motherboard that can do these settings, and that's it. Good. Look at these secondaries, man. 6.4. You're not getting less than 6 with this kind of frequency or data rate. 6.4, man. 330 TRFC is good. 13560 is great. 60 WR, 60 RTP, 16 T4, 4 TCK, TCWL CL minus 2, 12.8, 18.18, 12.8, 56.44 on the, like, these tertiaries are fine, perfectly fine, like really good. Not like bottomed out, mad, crazy, cracked OC, but it's like good, A plus. Like, I'm gonna say my OC is A plus. Like, it's good. It's good. Everything is exactly where it should be. So good secondaries, good tertiaries, and what could you see between this? I would like this whole thing, um, genuinely, probably closer to this number, but this could be a high end number. But I would say 20% is very reasonable to assume. I would not be surprised by 20% because you don't understand. Yes, RAM is not the be all end all, but this is a significant improvement in performance. Like this is like these are miles. I mean, look at this 13560 versus. Not to say that you need 13560, but like this number is incredibly low, incredibly low. So um, if you can get your RAM that much faster, you talking about. There we go. It's like now you're looking at 291. There we go, 350 FPS, right? So now, okay, I don't think you can get 350, but hypothetically speaking, let's say the 90 could scale to 350. You get about 350. I would say maybe close to 330, but you know what I mean? Like with the RAM, like this number really is inflated because, like I said, JDEC won't hit this. So let's say JDEC would be more like 240 FPS stock, maybe even 230, right? With the OC, we're gonna add because I know people are gonna get mad if I do this, and people are gonna be like, dude, there's no way you're getting. I know the Nvidia cards don't do that high. I know. Let's bring it down just for those people because it's gonna end up a mess. So 248.4 would be a fairly reasonable number, and we can add our further 20% here with our good DDR5 settings. And there we go. Now we get a number we can actually see in game. Now I can actually go to game, probably see this number pretty often. So this is a fairly reflective number of what you could expect about 300 frames. With good DDR5, stock 1200K, and then the GPU. Now, why do I say stock 1200K? Because the truth be told, the 12900K doesn't really need to be OC'd. Why? Now, the 12700K you might want to consider OCing because my friend Morgan reported to me that the 12700K's all core AVX load stock no offset clocks is 4.7, which is quite fucking low. That's, I mean, not like you can't do 4.7, but it's like 4.7 is not, it's not like super. It's not super good. I 4.7 is pretty questionable. So, oh, by the way, quick advice: if you ever see this file in your this area, probably want to move it to where it's meant to be. I don't know how it gets here to the main directory, but like sometimes it slides here. It's happened twice to me. I don't know if it breaks anything, but I would suggest moving it back because it doesn't belong there. But anyway, um, tips of Dane. Anyway, so wow, my team sucks right now, Chelsea. Anyway, so let's go to Intel's. You know, we don't even need that because I can just show you screenshots. Um, Now, first, let's say, what's the realistic AVX stable, LinPack stable OC with an average chip in the middle SPs with the AIO? 5.1 fucking gigahertz. I am sick of people saying they're hitting 5.3 and 5.4, all these fucking imaginary numbers. Dude, if you're hitting 5.4 on an AIO, passing LinPack, then you have a SP105. Like that, like or you have a KS SP95. By the way, the KS SPs are much higher. So if you have a KS SP95, it's gonna like be in the hundreds for a normal one. If you have a KS like 110, 105, and now you're saying you're hitting 5.4, now I believe you. If you say you're hitting 5.23 all core on Linpack with the fucking like SP86 with the AIO, I'm calling bullshit, dude. You live in Antarctica. There's no way. You live in Antarctica. Your fucking ambience are like -20, bro. You're freezing. You're fucking freezing. Did you wearing a coat inside? Like, but anyway, so I'm gonna say 5.1 because let's be fucking realistic. I'm sick of people saying they're getting 5.3 and all these imaginary numbers. It's fucking retarded. 5.1 is what you're getting. So if you divide this by 4.9, which is the stock all core, With no AVX offset, by the way, make sure to adjust that always. Never let them drop your AVX offset. It's a nightmare to test. Um, you get you're getting what do you call it, like 4%. Wait, let me just do it again because that's correct, but let me just do it again because I think I add another what do you call it, divisor, uh operator, sorry. So 4%, there we go. So 4%, yeah, exactly 4%, 1.040%. So 1.04% basically. So um and equals, what's equals? Well, equals don't really do anything in fucking game, do they? I mean, does it matter? No, like 3.7 to fucking 4.0, it doesn't matter. Like, yeah, there's an increase, yeah, great stuff. Like, it's, I mean, there's an increase. I mean, it's 8%. I mean, they do fucking nothing, dude. Don't worry about it. Like, they do nothing. It's fine. So 4.2 on the ring will help gaming. Ring will not fucking help gaming that much. The ring will make your fucking your RAM benchmarks look fucking nice. That's for damn sure. But ring will not significantly improve gaming performance. It'll help a little bit, but not as much as core roll. And not that either one fucking do much anyway. But 4.2 divided by 3.6 is stock when equals are on. 16% is pretty good, but again, it's not gonna translate in game. Um, like, let's just do a overall, and now you're gonna have to trust me again on this, but let's say 49 multiply P cores, like, and then 37E, 36R versus 51, 40, 42. Um, you could pretty much expect. Also, we do it properly. 42R. You could pretty much expect, like, maybe in gaming. I mean, so you're talking about 4% of the P cores. You're talking about like whatever with 8% of the equals, and then like 16 on the ring. All in all, in terms of gaming performance, like, okay, let's say CPU performance. Let's say CPU performance first. So let's say if the CPU's P cores are slightly higher, that's 4%. Obviously, we bag because that's guaranteed 4%. The E cores help a little bit, so let's add another 3% over performance because it's 8%. So let's say 3%, and then let's say the ring adds three more. So let's say 10%. 10% faster CPU overall in like CB and other shit. So what does that actually translate to in game? Well, if in COD your CPU is drawing 20% usage, and um you know you're talking about like maybe 2% in game, like maybe 2% in game. I don't really foresee it happening or having a higher effect than that. Um, you could maybe stretch that and be like 3%, 4% even, right? Maybe, yeah. I mean, let's say because equals and ring do help, so let's say 4% a game, right? From the 10% overall, right? So, because I mean, it's four for the ease, that or four for the piece. That those the most important cores. The ring will help a bit. The ring's improvements won't be a one-to-one, but it will help a little bit because it's IMC communication, whatever, uncore communication. It's what uh, lets the IO communicate to the cores and everything. So, and then ease. So say 10%. I mean, you can even say 12%, and then you could say 6 yeah, or 5 or whatever. I mean, you could even go like, yo, let's be adventurous. Let's say that, and then let's say 5. Okay, cool. So, what's 5% look like for this number? Like, and where does that number come? Like, where does the 5% come? Like, would 5% be applied to the bigger number, or would 5 be applied to because it's more like where in the chain does the processing, where's it required? Like, where's the bottleneck? Because you see, it's the law of large numbers. Like, okay, let's say we didn't add all these things here, right? So let's say um stock, right? Um and then we haven't applied the GPOC. Stock DDR5, and then yeah, so let's say DDR5 would result in this, and then we say CPU would result in this. So in the 5%. So 5 plus 20 plus 8, you could say. You could try and do it like that. So you could say 230 plus, and then you wouldn't make it of the larger number. You would just say like, you could try and do like 5, uh, 5 plus 20 plus 8, right? And you get 32%, and then you could say 230 plus basically a third. You get 306. Right? Now, that's everything. So you get a nice boost when everything's combined. But let's say 230 plus only the GPU and the RAM. And you find that's actually the biggest improvement, because the GPU and the RAM, it's going to be 8 plus 20%, so it's going to be 230 plus 28%, right? So, and you get 292, 294, sorry. So, wait, did I say it was 28%? Sorry, sorry. There we go. So, yeah, you do get a boost to the CPU. The CPU does help. I mean, but again, where does the processing come in? Like, I guess the RAM benefits, like the RAM increase benefits more when the CPU is OC'd, but the point I'm trying to make is the biggest boost you'll see in gen. By the way, like, 5 is generous. I don't even think FrameTracers gave the CPU 5, but 5 is generous, right? He said more like 2, whatever. I don't know what he said. Not misquote him. I don't know what he said exactly, but I'm giving it 5, and I don't think it's 5, but I'm giving it 5 in game. I don't think it does anything in game, to be honest, because it's the CPU utilization is so low in game. So um now we just like, okay, well, you guys saw all the stuff. You guys have all that. You check the data now. So let's go look at some examples of why that might be problematic, right? So you go to my folder. Now I have experimented with the new Asus BIOS because they forced it on us, which again, I'm sure you, if you watched the last video I made about that, it's quite annoying. I coded, or I added UCode 15. Not that it's anything special. It's a very simple process. I added UCode 15. So I used to start my testing with an undervolt because it just, it runs less warm, and I don't need it to run as fast now. I'm just trying to, I use the undervolt because I'm only trying to test the IMC. I'm not trying to test the core's performance. I'm just trying to test the IMC. The undervolt is just there because the IMC must be tested for the RAM, and then I'll worry about the CPU later. So undervolt by 75 millivolts, and the CPU maxed out. Now, bear in mind, it is 8C when the testing happened. CPU is maxing out if you check 74C. TM5 ran. This was stable, right? It was stable. And then I went, and now I also want you to notice. Look at the max power draw. 200 watts. 200 watts, right? Okay, cool. Now look at my retest one. So this is with 5.1, 4.0, 4.2. Familiar, right? Okay. Now, same ambience. It was very cold that morning. It was like, what time was it? No, at night. It was 10 o'clock. Interesting. Anyway, so I retest because I try and just make sure the IMC is still stable. So I came back, OC'd 8C ambient, ideal for overclocking, and I was drawing 260 fucking watts. And my 420 AIO was suffering. Linpack was burning my CPU up, and it hit 93 degrees. That is almost 20 fucking degrees and 60 watts, and that's all on your 5% in game, 12% in benchmarks, maybe 12, maybe probably more like 10. But I'm being generous. I'm saying 12 just to be nice. I mean, obviously I could test it for you guys, but I don't really feel like doing it because I feel like there's so much online anyway that we already know that. Like, I'm like 12 is trying to like be so nice to it, because I think it's more like 10. But yeah. Um, and if we go to my Peacock only one, I mean, you could show it to you, but like, okay, so Peacock only one ran like slightly, very slightly colder, 92C. It was still around, well, now it was 7 degrees, and yeah, I mean, so it was stable, right? Now, with Ucode 15. Now Ucode 8, the new Ucode, the microcode, it's kind of broken, but whatever. Um, this was stable. Now, just now, I was like, it's 15C, as you can see. Let's test my OC because I'm curious. So I find that my OC now requires like 20 millivolts more to be stable because it's warmer, obviously. And I've actually tested in the past. I've seen every about like let's say 8 degrees requires 20 more millivolts. That is a problem because when you're adding 20 millivolts, when you're already so on the brink of too warm, it's like it gets kind of crazy. Does this though? No, this is completely fine right now because it was never running warm regardless. And now that the temps have gone up, it's still running at like maybe it'll max at like 75, 76C, but it's so cold and it's still running at 200 watts, and it's like it doesn't care. And tangibly speaking, performance is still very good. Now, what do you have to worry about when you run a stock undervolt? Now, a few things. Same with the Ryzen as well, similar kind of thing. Always have high performance on. Now, does this make a difference? It does. I'll show you what happens if you turn it off. Let me just do this. Give me a second. So, as you can see with high performance, while I'm recording and using my PC and stuff, it's trying to clock to 5.1 by stock. You know, on some cores, 5.1 on other cores, 3.7 on the E cores, 3.6 ring, because obviously the ring is 3.6 when the E cores enabled. E cores just jump to 3.9 every now and again. So it's boosting itself in a few cores. It's doing its stock behavior. It's happy and it's fluctuating the voltage and everything's good. Now, with balanced, what happens? That happens. So you can run balanced. A lot of people like balance because balance helps you save even more power, but does this really benefit you in any tangible way? Not really. I feel like you'd be bothered more by these kinds of numbers, you know, while trying to do things, because you'll feel those micro like drops. I feel like high performance is the better overall package because it's still gonna draw like minimal power, but you're getting your clock speed, and you don't need to worry about this setting. I feel like this is more for laptops. There you see benefit, you know, dropping the clocks all the way down, dropping the voltage all the way down, because laptops are no battery and the batteries drain quick. So on desktops though, I'd say high performance is good, and as you can see when you have high performance on, you never get those down clocks, right? You shouldn't, at least, unless your PC's broken, whatever. Now, in game, same behavior, yes. In game, you're getting your 4. If in a game that's heavy, 4.9, 3.7, 3.6, everything's cool. In some games, you'll get slight boost to 5.0, 5.1, 5.2. In some cores, whenever the game feels or the CPU feels like it has headroom and power and voltage, I feel like CPU OC is kind of dead. I kind of thought it died with Ryzen already because I had Ryzen last year, and I was like, PBO is kind of nice. Problem with PBO is people have no idea how to do PBO properly. Now, PBO is... And the problem with Ryzen is, if you do an all-core OC, you need a really good like cooling solution, because if you can't cool those those CCTs and stuff, because they're awkwardly positioned. If you can't cool them properly, you heat crash like that, like so quick, dude. Like I was all coring 4.6 gigahertz, 4.651 CCX, 4.55 other CCX on my 5900X at 1.25 set volts, 1.2 in burn test. Not even Linux. Linux would have needed like, well, it would have run hotter, but it would have probably still been stable. That was maxing like 80C. It was still running cold, yes, but try and run 1.3 volts. The moment you touch 90C on a Ryzen chip, heat crash, gone. Completely locks up everything. You cannot hit 90C on a Ryzen CPU unless, I don't know, maybe you have golden silicon, I don't know. On my particular chip, no. When I hit 90C in IBTV2, it heat crashed immediately. And another person I spoke to who did a lot of Ryzen testing also said the same thing. Once your chip hits 90C, it kind of starts falling apart. Not that it breaks, but I mean, it's like starts just behaving really badly. Especially the FCLK and stuff, it's just a nightmare. So to run a heavy all-core OC on Ryzen, you needed some really insane cooling. PBO2 is actually very nice. So how do you actually run PBO2 on Ryzen? And honestly, PBO is the way to go, because with PBO, at least you know you're getting a decent all-core, but you're getting like good single core. Now AMD fixed PBO because PBO had a problem. PBO would try and boost some cores to 1.5 plus volts. That was a fucking problem. As of the latest Agisa, I think it was like something point 0.7. It was the one from like April or May. It was like April's Agisa. April's Agisa, I found, you did not go above 1.4 volts. Which is very important because it makes PBO a completely different beast. When your CPU's cores are boosting above 1.5 volts, you are right to be concerned. Regardless of what they say about whatever, I do not trust my chip boosting to 1.6 volts. On occasion, it just feels extremely weird, and I'm sure you guys can agree with me on that. But as you can see, the max it would draw would be 1.48 volts. Now, yes, this is very high, but this is not remotely close to 1.5 to 1.6 volts. It's not even close. And as you can see, like usually it would sit around here. I think that was even like that was a fluke. That was like an anomaly because this is what it was mostly sitting at, was around 1.42 volts, and this is completely healthy. Even up to 1.45 is fine. You know what? One core boosting to 1.47, 1.48 volts in a low temperature environment, I'd say that's fine. When you start getting to 1.55 to 1.6, that's when I say, hold the fuck on. Like that's insane. Like around here is completely fine, and I think AMD addressed that because I used to see some pretty wacky PBO boosting on my stuff last year, 2021. So how do you do PBO? Very simple. Just for everyone that needs to know this. How to do PBO. I guess in prep was in for. So how you do PBO is you get Ryzen Master once. So let me do a step by step. So step 1 is this. Check best cores in on CPU and make note of it. Okay. Now you want to go to BIOS. Wait. So you don't want to have Rising Hope of 95C, I would say, but I would even say 90C is better. So I would say more like 92C. Keep throttling there, and then you would say so the maxed out if what I mean when I say that is I would say run something like Linpack Extreme and see how much power your chip can draw, and you want to try and guess a healthy load voltage that you could sustain. So let's say a healthy load voltage would maybe be, let's say 1.2 volts at load. Remember, they have big cores, so these chips run warm, plus CC design. These chips run warm, guys. You have to understand, AMD's chips run very warm. This is what you're gonna want to see in Linpack for a 12 core and then for 16 core. Obviously, these are on AIO, but even for a loop, I would say don't stray too far above these because I don't think you can do more than like even 1.275 in the load for 12 core. But let's say around these, and then you want to go multiply max load voltage. You think you can cool by max current draw of the stress test, and that gives you PPT, right? That gives you PPT. So once you have that, you want to set TDC around um, Um, and do the same for EDC. But and then no, actually, and EDC will always be like wait amp. I'm not sure why, but generally I've seen that's what tends to happen. I don't exactly know why, but that's kind of how it usually goes. Scalar I would set to 1x or 2x. Now you go to PBO to undervolt, so you want to go to the um, curve optimizer. Wait, right, set your best core to the lowest offset. This core boosts the furthest. It needs more voltage. You can't set this core to negative 30. Now this will be person dependent, but negative 5 to 10 is good. Actually, the higher you have to go, or the lower you have to go, the worse your silicon is. If you can do negative 30 all core, it means your silicon sucks. Because it ain't boosting very far. So that's why you're all the way down there, because you're not getting very far regardless. Um, so then you want to do like, okay, let's say let's say 10 for argument's sake. Example. I'm gonna make it equal because it's easier. So I don't wanna No, I have to do 12 because I have to do two CCTs. Okay. 12 core. CCX 0 has better cores always. CCX 0, CCX 1 has worse cores always. CCX 1's best core as good as CCX 0's. Um, wait. So that's a good rule to follow because this is kind of guesswork at the end of the day. But this has usually ended up being good for me in my testing. I've never really gone wrong with this method. Um, I want to make this bold, man, by itself, but I can't. Doesn't matter. Okay, so that's a good rule to follow. And then you do CCX 1's second best core as good as CCX 0's mediocre cores. So that's a rule to follow. CCX 0's best core is the best core on the die. CCX 0's second best core is the second best, obviously. Okay. Um, so now, so you'd set this to 10, negative 10. Set this to negative 12, right? Let's say you had a good chip. You could even do negative 8, negative 12. Okay. So you would say, okay, let's say negative 13 or something, right? Negative 13. And then you would say CCX zeros you would say about negative 15 maybe even 14, but I'd say 15. And then you could do negative 15 here. And now for the rest of the cores, CCX 1's standard cores, i.e. worst on die. And you could be like, okay, they're really bad, all the way negative 20, right? Or something like that, right? Or you could even do, like, if you want to be adventurous, let's say you had a really bad chip, you could say negative 25. You could say You could say negative like 18 year. You could say negative 18 there, or you could say even 20 year. Let's say you thought this was a good call, right? Okay, you could do 18 year, you could do 20 year, and you could do 12 year, you could do 10. Um, you could do 14, you could do 14, so you could do 10, 14 for this one, 20 for these, 18 for this one, 14 for this one, matching this one, and then you could have these ones all 25, maybe even 30 if you really like adventurous. But that's that's kind of how you do it, and you test this. This you would have to test. You could honestly, this you wouldn't necessarily test via like Linpack. You could test via Linpack, but you also need to test in games and on desktop as well as light work. Why? Because during light loads, these are going to drop really far down, and this might just blue screen you on desktop, right? See? So that's kind of the thing, right? Um, but yeah, so I advocate undervolting. I think CPU undervolting is awesome. I think that overclocking your modern chip is no longer possible. In all honesty, I have an Octic 420. It's got a QC stick on it. As far as I understand, it's fine. It's not performing weirdly. It's performing fairly well. About 5 to 8 degrees better than my in-win. You know, not the in-win is bad. The in-win is fine. So, about 5 degrees maybe on average better, which is what you expect. You don't expect more than 5 degrees, and 5 degrees already is already probably more than I expected. If I'm honest. I'm using MX2, which is not too great, but I would imagine that versus something like Cryonaut, maybe I'm losing 3 degrees. I could get better paste obviously, but I would say on a if you're on a liquid cooler, that's the bottom line, guys. This is where we are right now in PCs because right, Alder Lake made me fall on my back because I was running the Waterforce X360 and it was handling my 10850K so well. Seeing how badly it handled the 1200K made me realize this thing is a bitch to OC. Unless you've got a loop, a serious loop, don't expect much. And man, let me tell you, like, wait, let me not open Discord. Let me tell you that most guys on OCN are using loops. Most guys, right? You can go anywhere here. You can go to here. So, you know, come to this guy. Look here, look. So even the first post, look. Not to use this guy. So I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to make an example of anyone, but I mean, it's a good loop. I'm just gonna show he's cooling. But look, so he's at 5.3 gigahertz. Look, very good OC, right? But what's he got? Look at this. Look at this. Look at that. Two 420s, as if I'm reading that correctly. Um, he's not showing his one. It was someone that had a really insane setup that I saw once upon a time. Um, I'm gonna find some more for you guys. This guy's got a contact frame, but I don't know if he has a loop or not. He doesn't mention it. He doesn't mention it. This guy's got a U12A. Um, but wait, actually, I'm looking at the wrong page. I'm being dumb, guys. Just gotta go over here. This one. Yo, yeah, you'll see. Like everyone here has loops. Everyone, okay, this he doesn't show his, but I think he's got a loop. I'm pretty sure. He's got an insane loop. He's got a YouTube channel. He's got an insane loop. This here's a loop. If I'm not wrong, he's got a loop. Who else now? Well, everyone here has loops. Everyone here pretty much, except me. And a few other guys. Um, but if you browse OCN, you'll see if you browse, you'll hear them mentioning a lot about their cooling setups. And I'm telling you right now, most guys have loops. Like most people OCing i9s have loops. I by this point, look, in game you're never hitting those temperatures. So you can argue that as long as you don't launch the stress test during a warm day, it's stable. But the problem I have is you're not stable all the time, and it doesn't feel very ideal, does it? It feels kind of dodgy, right? It feels like you can't always rely on your PC, and I don't like that. I like reliability, right? So that's kind of the thing. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope it was informative. I tried to do my best to make it as intuitive as possible. Um, yeah, like I'm quite a fan of undervolts these days because um, yeah, I just don't see how OCing i9s is really an option anymore. I just feel like they get too fucking warm, man. They just get too damn warm, right? So yeah, that's about it. And until the next one.